The words came while she folded laundry at the kitchen counter, her hands moving with mechanical precision over a cream-colored towel. You need to find somewhere else to stay, Amelia. This house isn't for failures. I stood frozen in the doorway, my hand instinctively moving to my swollen belly. 7 months pregnant, and my mother was evicting me with the same tone she used to discuss grocery lists. "Mom, I have nowhere else to go," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the hum of the refrigerator. She didn't look up. "That's not my problem. You made your choices. Now you deal with the consequences." My bag was already by the front door. She'd packed it while I was at my doctor's appointment. The realization hit me like ice water. This wasn't a spontaneous decision. She'd planned this. "Where am I supposed to go?" My voice cracked. Finally she met my eyes. They were cold, empty of the warmth I remembered from childhood. "Figure it out. You're an adult now." The November cold bit through my thin jacket as I stepped outside, pulling my suitcase behind me. Behind me, the door clicked shut with finality. My name is Amelia Price, and until 8 months ago, I was my mother's perfect girl. She'd introduce me at church gatherings with a proud smile, listing my accomplishments like trophies. Dean's List at college. Engaged to Alex Thompson, a promising accountant. A bright future mapped out in neat, predictable steps. Sunday dinners were warm then. Mom would make her famous pot roast, and we'd sit around the oak table discussing wedding plans. She'd already picked out centerpieces, chosen the color scheme, even selected my dress without asking. "You'll be married by 25, she'd say, patting my hand. "Established by 30. That's how successful women do it." I nodded along, believing her love was unconditional, believing family meant support no matter what. I was naive. The engagement ring felt heavy on my finger back then, though not as heavy as the expectations. Alex was perfect on paper. Stable job, good family, church every Sunday. But paper doesn't capture the coldness behind closed doors, the way he'd criticize my dreams of becoming a property manager instead of a stay-at-home wife. When the pregnancy test showed 2 pink lines, my carefully constructed future shattered like dropped glass. The night everything fell apart, Alex stood in my apartment doorway, his face twisted with anger. "You're keeping it. Are you insane?" "It's our baby," I pleaded, still holding the ultrasound photo. The tiny bean-shaped image represented everything: hope, fear, love, responsibility. "It's a mistake," he spat back. "I'm not ready for this. We're not ready for this. We can figure it out together." "No." His voice was final, cold. "I'm done. This isn't what I signed up for." He left the engagement ring on my kitchen counter and walked out. I heard his car start, then fade into the distance. The silence that followed was deafening. I called my mother through tears, expecting comfort. Instead I got judgment. "You let this happen," she said flatly when I arrived at her house that night. "You've ruined your life, Amelia. All those years of planning, all that potential, wasted." "Mom, I need you. What you need is to face reality. You've embarrassed this family. You've embarrassed me." Her eyes stayed dry while mine flooded. That's when I understood. Her love had always come with conditions I'd never fully read. I spent that first night in my car outside a 24-hour gas station. The December cold seeped through the worn upholstery, and my breath fogged the windows. My daughter, I already knew she was a girl somehow, kicked against my ribs as if protesting our circumstances. My phone screen glowed with a text from Mom. "Don't make this harder than it has to be. You're choosing to be difficult." Choosing to be difficult. As if pregnancy was a rebellious phase I'd selected from a catalog. As if homelessness was my preferred lifestyle choice. I deleted the message and wrapped my coat tighter. The gas station's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the parking lot. An employee kept glancing at me through the window, probably wondering if I was trouble. "We'll be okay," I whispered to my belly, though I had no idea if that was true. "Somehow, baby girl, we'll figure this out." A semi-truck rumbled past, shaking my small sedan. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, but the baby kicked again, restless and uncomfortable. She seemed to sense my fear, responding to the rapid beating of my heart. Morning came with frost on the windows and an empty gas tank. Labor started in a budget motel 3 weeks later, 2 weeks earlier than expected. The contractions hit suddenly, doubling me over as I fumbled for my phone. The room spun, and I gripped the scratched dresser for support. A housekeeper named Rosa found me in the hallway, leaning against the vending machine and crying. She didn't speak much English, but she understood pain. She called 911 and held my hand while we waited. The hospital was a blur of white lights and urgent voices. No one to squeeze my hand during contractions. No mother stroking my hair. No partner counting breaths. Just me and the medical staff doing their jobs with professional efficiency. "Push," the doctor commanded. I pushed, feeling like my body was tearing apart. Sweat stung my eyes. My throat was raw from screaming. Every contraction felt like dying, like my body was rejecting everything, including hope. Then I heard it, a tiny, furious cry. "It's a girl," someone announced. They placed her on my chest, this wrinkled, perfect creature with my nose and angry fists. She stopped crying the moment she felt my heartbeat, her tiny body fitting perfectly against mine. "You'll never feel unwanted," I promised through tears. "Never." Joanne was the night nurse who changed everything. She was older, maybe 60, with kind eyes that actually saw me instead of looking through me. While other staff moved efficiently through their tasks, she lingered. "You got family coming?" she asked gently, adjusting my fore. "No," I admitted, my voice hollow. "Just us." She nodded without pity, which I appreciated. Pity felt like drowning. "Let me make some calls. I know people who help young mothers." Within a week, Joanne had connected me with a subsidized housing program. The apartment was tiny, 1 bedroom in a building where the elevator rarely worked and sirens sang lullabies every night. But it was ours. The walls were thin enough to hear neighbors arguing. Water stains bloomed across the ceiling like ugly flowers. The radiator clanked and hissed but barely produced heat. Still, when I laid my daughter in the donated crib, surrounded by walls that belonged to us, I cried with relief. I named her Hope. Seemed appropriate. I found work at Morrison's grocery, stocking shelves during the overnight shift. A neighbor, Mrs. Chen, I didn't catch her first name, watched Hope for almost nothing, just happy for the company. Every lullaby I hummed while rocking Hope to sleep sounded like a vow. We would survive this. 6 months after Hope's birth, my mother called. Not to ask about her granddaughter. Not to apologize. To inform me that my cousin Bethany had gotten engaged. "They're having the wedding at the country club," Mom said, her voice bright with vicarious pride. 300 guests. Bethany really knows how to do things right. I held the phone away from my ear, staring at Hope sleeping peacefully in her second-hand bassinet. The implied comparison hung heavy in the air. "That's nice," I managed. "You should learn from her, Amelia. She didn't let one mistake derail her entire future." One mistake. That's what Hope was to her, a mistake. Not a granddaughter with my eyes and a smile that lit up our dim apartment. Just an error in judgment, a cautionary tale. "I have to go, Mom. Hope needs." "Of course. Baby." Always the baby. Her sigh carried across the phone line, heavy with manufactured patience. "When you're ready to rejoin the family properly, let me know. But I won't pretend to approve of your choices." I hung up before she finished her sentence. My hands shook as I set the phone down. That's when clarity finally arrived. Her approval wasn't love. It was control, conditional and cold. I blocked her number that night. I started saving every spare dollar, hiding cash in an envelope taped behind Hope's dresser. $5 from each paycheck. 10 when I picked up extra shifts. 20 when I sold my old textbooks online. The pile grew slowly, painfully slowly. Some weeks I could only add coins. But I kept at it, driven by a determination I couldn't quite name yet. During Hope's nap times, I took online courses in property management. The local library offered free internet, and I'd sit there with my laptop and coffee from home in a travel mug, absorbing information about lease agreements, property values, and tenant rights. The exhaustion was crushing. I'd work all night at the grocery store, come home to a few hours with Hope, then study while she napped. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. But the small victories kept me moving forward. An A on a quiz. Hope's first word. Mama. A smile from her that made the sleepless nights worthwhile. A promotion to assistant manager that came with a 50-cent raise. I pinned my course certificates on our peeling apartment wall like battle scars. Each one represented hours stolen from sleep, moments of doubt pushed aside. Hope would sometimes point at them and babble proudly, as if she understood they were for her. At night, counting my hidden savings, I'd whisper promises to my sleeping daughter about the future we'd build. 2 years later, my mother appeared at Morrison's grocery during my evening shift. I was restocking canned vegetables when I felt eyes on me and turned to find her standing at the end of the aisle. She looked the same. Perfectly styled hair, designer handbag, expression of faint disappointment. A small crowd of shoppers moved around her, and she'd clearly positioned herself for maximum visibility. "Amelia," she said, her voice carrying. Sweet enough for the audience but with an edge I recognized. "You're still here. Still working, yes." I forced my voice to stay level. "I'd hoped you would have improved your situation by now." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Where's the baby?" "Her name is Hope. She's with the babysitter." "Of course." Mom glanced at my name tag, my work vest, the price gun in my hand. Her assessment was thorough and damning. "Well, keep trying, dear. Everyone hits bottom sometimes. The important thing is climbing back up." She bought organic kale and sparkling water, paying with a platinum credit card. As she left, she called over her shoulder. "Tell Hope her grandmother says hello. When you're more settled, perhaps we can arrange a visit." My manager, Mr. Kowalski, appeared beside me after she left. "You okay?" "Fine," I lied, gripping a can of corn hard enough to dent it. "Just family." Mr. Kowalski became an unexpected ally. He'd watched that interaction with my mother, and something about it moved him. A week later, he pulled me aside during break. "My brother-in-law runs a small real estate company," he said, pouring coffee from the break room pot. "They need an office assistant. Entry-level, but it's a start. Want me to put in a word?" I stared at him, afraid to hope. "I don't have much experience." "You've got your certifications. You show up on time. You work hard. That's what matters." He slid a business card across the table. "Call him tomorrow. Tell him I sent you." The interview was the following Thursday. I wore my only professional outfit, a suit from my college days that was slightly too tight now. I'd practiced answers in front of the bathroom mirror while Hope played with toys in the tub. Harrison Realty occupied a small office above a dry cleaner. The owner, Mr. Harrison, was in his 60s with weathered hands and kind eyes. He asked me 3 questions, looked at my certifications, and nodded. "When can you start?" "Tomorrow," I answered immediately. That night, I studied rental contracts while Hope slept beside me. Her small hand curled around my finger. I was terrified and thrilled in equal measure, feeling like I was finally moving forward instead of just surviving. I discovered I was good at real estate, really good. While others in the office rushed through paperwork, I caught errors. I noticed discrepancies in property valuations. I remembered every detail of every listing, every client preference, every contract clause. "You've got an eye for this," Mr. Harrison said after I caught a significant zoning issue on a commercial property. "Most people miss that kind of thing." I started managing small portfolios. Nothing fancy, a few rental properties, some commercial leases. But I was meticulous, and clients noticed. They started requesting me specifically. Hope was 3 now, in a decent daycare I could finally afford. She'd draw pictures of houses for me, little squares with triangle roofs and crayon smoke from chimneys. "Like Mama's job," she'd announce proudly. I took my real estate license exam on a Saturday. The test was brutal. 200 questions about laws, ethics, practices. I'd studied for 6 months. Every free moment poured into preparation. When the results came back 2 weeks later, I was at the office. Mr. Harrison handed me the envelope with a knowing smile. My hand shook as I opened it. I sat down hard in my chair, overwhelmed. Mr. Harrison poured 2 glasses of cheap champagne he kept in his desk. Welcome to the business, officially. That weekend I took Hope to the park. Mama's a real estate agent now, I told her while pushing her on the swings. She clapped like she understood exactly what that meant. My mother called again 3 years later, her voice honey-sweet. Amelia, your sister Vanessa is graduating from law school. We're having a party. You should come. Ring. Hope. The hesitation before my daughter's name spoke volumes. Against every instinct I agreed to attend. Hope was 6 now, bright and talkative, wearing her favorite dress with butterflies on it. The party was at my mother's house, the house I'd been thrown out of 7 years earlier. Crystal platters of catered food covered every surface. Extended family I'd been excluded from filled the rooms with laughter and congratulations. Vanessa held court in the living room, her law degree displayed prominently, engagement ring catching the light as she gestured. Mom stood beside her like a proud peacock, soaking in reflected glory. Amelia, a neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, approached with genuine warmth. I haven't seen you in years. What are you up to these days? Before I could answer, my mother materialized at my elbow. Oh, Amelia's still figuring things out. She laughed lightly, dismissively. Not everyone finds their path as quickly as Vanessa. Heat flooded my face. Hope squeezed my hand, sensing my discomfort. I smiled down at her, then looked Mrs. Patterson in the eye. I'm a licensed real estate agent. I manage commercial and residential properties. How wonderful! Mrs. Patterson beamed. Mom's smile tightened. How nice. Still, nothing compared to law school. She turned away to refresh someone's drink, conversation over. I left shortly after, gripping Hope's hand tightly as we walked to my car. We're never coming back here, I whispered. Never again. My breakthrough came through an unexpected source, a client named Mr. Bernard Phillips. He was 78, a landlord managing a small portfolio of properties he'd accumulated over 40 years. His children had no interest in the business, and he was looking for someone to eventually take over. You remind me of myself at your age, he told me over coffee at a diner near his office. Hungry, determined. You notice things others miss. He became my mentor, teaching me everything he knew. How to evaluate property value beyond the listed price. How to spot good bones under bad cosmetics. How to negotiate without showing your cards. When to walk away. Real estate isn't about buildings, he'd say. It's about vision. Seeing what others can't see yet. He let me shadow him on property visits. Showed me his process for assessing investment potential. Taught me how to flip small properties. Buying distressed homes, renovating efficiently, and selling for profit. Within a year, I'd flipped my first property. A tiny foreclosed house in a rough neighborhood. I saw past the water damage and broken windows to the solid structure underneath. The profit was modest, but it was mine. I bought Hope a swing set for our small backyard with part of the earnings. The rest went into my investment fund. Mr. Phillips watched me like a proud parent, seeing something in me I was only beginning to recognize in myself. I was scrolling through property listings late one Tuesday night, Hope asleep beside me when I saw it. The address made my heart stop. 1247 Maple Drive. My mother's house. The house I'd grown up in. The house I'd been thrown out of 7 years ago while pregnant. Listed as a rental property. My hands trembled as I clicked for more details. 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath. Recently updated kitchen. Monthly rent. $1,800. Current tenant. Occupied. The owner's name wasn't my mother's. A company LLC I didn't recognize owned it now. I sat up slowly, careful not to wake Hope. My mother had sold her house, her pride, her showcase, the symbol of her status in the community. And now she was renting it back. The irony was almost too perfect to be real. I called Mr. Phillips the next morning, trying to keep the emotion from my voice. There's a property I want to look into purchasing. Can you help me research the owner? Within a week, we had the full picture. Mom had leveraged the house heavily during the recession, borrowing against it to maintain her lifestyle. When the market crashed, she couldn't keep up with payments. The bank foreclosed, and an investment company bought it at auction. They'd been renting it back to her for 5 years. Why this particular property? Mr. Phillips asked carefully. I told him everything. The discovery that my mother had lost her house, the very house she deemed too good for failures, shifted something fundamental in my chest. Not quite satisfaction, not quite revenge. Something closer to cosmic justice. Mr. Phillips made inquiries through his network. The current owner, an LLC called Brightview Properties, was an older investor looking to liquidate some holdings. The house wasn't on the market yet, but everything had a price. They're asking $285,000, Mr. Phillips reported. It's fair market value. Maybe slightly high, but they've maintained it well. I checked my savings account. I'd been building it steadily for years, reinvesting profits from my flips, living modestly. I had $95,000. Enough for a strong down payment with my excellent credit score and business track record. My hands shook as I filled out the loan application. This wasn't just another investment property. This was closure. This was proving that the daughter who ruined her life had built something substantial. The loan approval came back in 3 weeks. I stared at the pre-approval letter for a long time, tears blurring the numbers. Hope climbed into my lap, wiping my cheeks. Why crying, Mama? Happy tears, baby. I hugged her tight. Mama's buying us something special. Mr. Phillips negotiated the purchase. I stayed in the background using my LLC, Hope's Future Holdings, to keep my name hidden. The closing was scheduled for early October. The day I signed the final papers, my hand cramped from writing my signature so many times. Page after page of legal documents, each one more surreal than the last. Mr. Phillips sat beside me, reviewing everything with his practiced eye. This is it, he said when we finished. You now own 1247 Maple Drive. I held the deed carefully, studying my name printed in bold letters. Amelia Grace Price, owner. The same house that had held all my childhood memories, both good and poisonous. The house I'd been evicted from, now legally mine. Hope was at school, unaware that her mother had just purchased the house where I'd grown up. I planned to tell her that evening, though she was still too young to understand the full significance. I drove by the house that afternoon, parking across the street. It looked the same. Red brick, white trim, the oak tree in the front yard where I'd had a swing as a child. Flowers bloomed in the beds, carefully maintained. My mother's car sat in the driveway, and I could see lights on inside. She had no idea the ownership had transferred. The notice of sale wouldn't reach her for another week. I'd bought myself time to decide exactly how to handle this. Mr. Phillips called that evening. So, what's your plan? Are you going to raise her rent? Flip it? Move in? I don't know yet, I admitted. I just needed to own it. I drafted the letter carefully, revising it a dozen times. It needed to be professional, impersonal, legally sound. Nothing that revealed my identity yet. Dear tenant, it began. This letter serves as notification that the property located at 1247 Maple Drive has been sold. Ownership has transferred to Hope's Future Holdings, LLC, effective October 1st. As the new owner, I am required to meet with all current tenants to review existing lease agreements and discuss terms moving forward. Please contact the number below to schedule an appointment at your earliest convenience. I included my business line, a number Mom wouldn't recognize, and signed it with just my LLC name. No personal signature. No hint. My hand trembled as I dropped it in the mailbox near my office. There was no going back now. The letter would arrive in 2 days, and then my mother would know her world had shifted, though not yet how much. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining her opening the letter, reading it with growing concern. Would she panic? Would she recognize this as a threat to her carefully maintained facade? Hope found me sitting at the kitchen table at midnight, staring at my copy of the letter. "Mama, why you're awake?" "Just thinking, baby." I pulled her onto my lap. "Mama bought a house. A new house." Her eyes widened. "Sort of. I'll explain when you're older." I kissed her forehead. "Go back to bed." The call came 3 days later while I was showing a property to a client. Unknown number, local area code. I let it go to voicemail, my heart pounding. Later, sitting in my car, I played the message. My mother's voice filled the small space, tight with barely controlled panic. "Amelia, it's your mother. Something's happened with my house. The owner sold it. Some investment company bought it." Her voice wavered slightly. "They want to meet next week to discuss my lease. I thought you might know about these things now with your job. Could you give me some advice?" The irony of her asking me for help, me the failure she'd dismissed, was almost too rich. I saved the message and played it 3 more times, hearing the worry she tried to hide. I didn't call back. Not yet. Instead, I scheduled the meeting through my assistant, keeping everything professional and distant. The appointment was set for the following Tuesday at 2 p.m. Location: my office at Harrison Realty. Mr. Phillips raised an eyebrow when I told him. "You're really doing this?" "I need closure," I said. "One way or another." He nodded slowly. "Just remember, revenge is expensive. Make sure you can afford the price." I scheduled my assistant to take Hope to the park during the meeting. This conversation needed to happen without witnesses. My mother arrived 15 minutes early, which wasn't surprising. She'd always been punctual when something mattered to her. I watched through my office blinds as she parked, checking her makeup in the rearview mirror, straightening her jacket, still maintaining appearances. She entered the building with her chin high, expensive handbag over one arm. I heard her greet my assistant with forced brightness, asking about the weather, commenting on the office decor, still playing the role of the gracious, successful woman. I'd arranged the conference room deliberately, papers spread across the table, my business license framed on the wall, property files stacked neatly. Everything designed to communicate competence, success, authority. When my assistant showed her in, Mom was mid-sentence about traffic downtown. She stopped when she saw me sitting at the head of the table. Her face went through several expressions rapidly. Confusion, disbelief, recognition, and finally, something that might have been fear. "Amelia." Her voice came out strangled. "What are you? Why are you?" I gestured to the chair across from me. "Please sit down, Mrs. Price. We have some things to discuss about your rental property." She sank into the chair slowly, eyes darting to the papers on the table. I watched her spot my name on the deed, saw the moment comprehension fully hit. "You," she whispered. "You bought my house." "Technically, I bought a property." I kept my voice level, professional. "The property you're currently renting at 1247 Maple Drive." "Yes." The silence stretched between us like pulled taffy. Mom stared at the deed, then at me, then back at the papers. Her hands clutched her purse so tightly her knuckles went white. You can't. I've lived there for 30 years. Her composure was cracking, pieces falling away to reveal panic underneath. "You lived there," I corrected gently. "You lost it 5 years ago. Since then you've been a tenant. But I always made my payments." "I'm not disputing that." I slid the lease agreement across the table. "Your current lease expires December 1st. That's 6 weeks from now." Her eyes scanned the document, probably hoping to find some protection, some clause she'd overlooked. But I'd reviewed it thoroughly. It was a standard month-to-month lease after the initial year. No long-term protection. Where am I supposed to go? The question came out small, broken. It was the same question I'd asked her 7 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. I saw the recognition in her eyes, the memory of standing in that same kitchen, telling her pregnant daughter to find somewhere else to stay. I don't know, Mom. I used the title deliberately, watching her flinch. That's not my problem. You made your choices. Now you deal with the consequences. Her face went pale. Those were her exact words to me, thrown back across the years. Mom tried to recover, reaching for the authority she'd always wielded over me. Amelia, this is ridiculous. You're my daughter. We can work something out. I know I was harsh before, but that's no reason to. Harsh. The word came out sharper than I intended. You threw me out while I was pregnant. You called your grandchild a mistake. You've spent 7 years pretending I don't exist unless it served your image. I was trying to teach you responsibility. No. I stood, gathering the papers. You were protecting your reputation. There's a difference. She stood too, desperation replacing pride. Please, Amelia. I'm your mother. You stopped being my mother when you made your love conditional. I held out a folder. This is your official notice. You have until December 1st to vacate. The property will be undergoing renovations. Renovations. You're just doing this to hurt me. Actually, I'm moving in. With Hope. Your granddaughter. I watched her absorb that information. We need more space, and this property is perfect for us. Her mouth opened and closed soundlessly. He tried one more time. Amelia, please. Can't we discuss this? Family should help family. I thought about all the times I'd needed help. All the times she'd chosen appearances over supporting me. All the Sunday dinners I hadn't been invited to. All the birthday parties Hope had missed. You're right, I said quietly. Family should help family. I wish you'd remembered that 7 years ago. My mother didn't beg. Pride wouldn't let her. She left my office with her head high, though I saw her hand shake as she opened her car door. She drove away slowly, and I wondered if she was seeing her life differently now, understanding how quickly security could vanish. Through mutual friends, the ones who'd quietly kept in touch with me over the years, I learned she'd found a smaller apartment across town. 2 bedrooms in an older complex, far from her social circle. No more hosting dinner parties. No more showcasing her perfect life. I felt no triumph, surprisingly. Just a hollow sort of closure, like finishing a book you'd been reading for too long. Mr. Phillips stopped by my office that evening. How'd it go? She's moving out. I stared at my computer screen without seeing it. December 1st. And how do you feel? I considered the question carefully. Like I just closed a door that should have closed years ago. He nodded, understanding in his weathered face. The hard part's over then. Now you get to build something new. He was right. The house wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclamation. Taking something that had once represented rejection and transforming it into home. I called the contractor that night to discuss renovation plans. Fresh paint throughout. New flooring in Hope's room. Something cheerful and bright. A swing set in the backyard, bigger than the one we had now. Moving day came on a Saturday in December. Hope bounced around our old apartment, excited about the new house, though she didn't fully understand its significance yet. Movers loaded our furniture, not much but ours, into the truck. I stood in the empty apartment for a moment, remembering the night I'd first walked through these rooms. How impossible the future had seemed. How heavy Hope had felt in my arms, both burden and blessing. Thank you, I whispered to the empty space. It had sheltered us when we had nothing. It deserved gratitude. At 1247 Maple Drive, I held Hope's hand as we walked through the front door. The movers had already started unloading, but I needed this moment. Just us in this house that had once rejected me. Every room held ghosts. The kitchen where Mom had told me to leave. The hallway where I'd cried. The porch where I'd stood with my suitcase. 7 months pregnant and homeless. But I'd repainted it all during renovations. Warm colors replaced the cold whites. New curtains filtered afternoon light differently. Hope's artwork would soon cover the refrigerator. Our laughter would fill the rooms. "Is this really ours, Mama?" Hope asked, exploring with wide eyes. "Really ours, baby." I squeezed her hand. "Forever." We spent that evening hanging pictures, arranging furniture, making the space ours. Hope fell asleep in her new room, surrounded by boxes yet to be unpacked, smiling in her dreams. 3 weeks later, I found my mother on the porch one evening. She didn't knock, just stood there as if afraid to approach her former home now that it belonged to someone else. "Mom." I stepped outside, leaving the door open behind me so I could hear if Hope needed me. "I was in the neighborhood," she said, which was obviously untrue given her new apartment was across town. "I wanted to see. I heard you'd moved in." "We moved in 3 weeks ago." She nodded, looking at the house. The new paint, the holiday wreath I'd hung, the glow of lights inside. You've done well with it." The admission seemed to cost her something. I saw it in her posture, the way she wouldn't quite meet my eyes. "Thank you. I was wrong." The words came out rushed, like she needed to say them before courage failed. "About you. About Hope. I thought you'd ruined your life, but you lived it differently than I planned." I waited, letting her find the rest of the words. "I've been proud of the wrong things," she continued softly. "Appearances instead of substance. Control instead of support." Her voice cracked. "I threw away my daughter because she didn't match my image. That's unforgivable." "Yes," I agreed quietly. "It is." She finally looked at me, tears tracking through her makeup. "Is there any chance?" "I don't know, Mom. I was too tired for lies. You hurt me. You hurt Hope by rejecting her before she was even born. That doesn't just disappear." She nodded, accepting it. "I understand. But maybe someday. Maybe," I allowed. "But it won't be easy. And it won't be on your terms anymore." After she left, I sat on the porch, the same porch where I'd stood with my suitcase, terrified and alone. The same porch that now had Hope's toys scattered across it, evidence of life and laughter. The porch light glowed warm above me, the same light that used to signal I wasn't welcome. Now it meant home. Safety. Family built on different terms than the one I'd been born into. Hope appeared at the door, rubbing sleepy eyes. "Mama. Who was that lady?" "Just someone passing by, baby." I pulled her onto my lap. "Come watch the stars with me." We sat together in the December cold, wrapped in blankets, counting constellations Hope was learning in first grade. She pointed out Orion's belt, proud of her knowledge. Inside, the house glowed with our lights, our warmth, our life. The house that had once rejected me now sheltered my daughter. The daughter who would never wonder if she was wanted, never question if she was enough. "Mama." Hope's voice was small in the darkness. "Yes, baby. I love our house." Kiss.